Hello. Oh, Christopher, I think you're muted.
Yes, the slowest mute trigger finger ever in the history of Zoom is me.
Hi,
Hi.
how are you?
Good, I've missed you.
I know, I know. I was kind of in and out. I missed our Ask a Theologian this month. How was that?
Yeah, it was amazing. It
Oh,
was so
man.
amazing as always. And
Yes.
Alice.
Yeah, so our guest
Hi.
today, our special guest today. Oh, Alice is here or not
She's not
here.
here.
Is Alice Blount-Fenney, who runs the food pantry out of St. Peter's every Saturday, and so she's maybe here. She's coming. Okay,
Alice,
well, while she makes her way
come
down
on
the
down.
steps into the studio, we'll just
From the green
how
room.
yes, how have you been, Christopher?
I've been good. All relative. Good. Very
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Today I'm feeling a little shy. I don't know. I think those of us who are shy might understand. I'm feeling shy today.
Mm.
But it could be like some nerves about how the summer will play out and the transition from an insular life to more outgoing life.
Yeah.
I'm a little neurotic about that, I won't lie. So,
Yeah, no, I definitely get that. I feel like since the CDC made that announcement that all
yeah,
fully vaccinated people don't have to mask anymore, I feel a
yeah.
little like, oh, okay. Oh, Alice has joined us. She
Hi,
Hi.
entered the
Good,
studio.
good morning.
came from the
How are
green
you?
room.
Oh, thank
We're
you.
we're good. You look beautiful.
Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you. I actually this is my usual Zoom. Let me just kind of mask things up. I have on yoga pants on the bottom,
That's
but
how it
I
is.
but I
That's
keep
the Zoom
using.
life.
Yes, I always keep 6 white shirts for my meetings, especially during the week with my boss.
Wow, that's
Wow,
strategy. That's very wise,
that
actually.
is.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Making
unfortunately, it's going to end pretty soon because we have to all get back on campus by the 15th of June, full
the
time.
15th of June. Oh, wow, that's right
Wow.
around the corner.
I
Yes.
know. That's what Christopher and I were just talking about, this whole idea of like the city and all these, things opening up again and sort of everyone's feelings about that because we've been so, isolated and sheltered for so long that it is a
Yes.
little bit anxiety producing. Even I think
Oh,
for
Yeah.
people who are excited to get out, it's still like, oh, well, we haven't done this in a long time.
no,
So,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, I have weekly meetings with Episcopal Charities, and this week we talked about that as far as with the dealing, because we still deal with the public. And
mhm,
yesterday with some of the volunteers, that's what that was one of our topics yesterday, as far as just erring on the side of caution.
Mm.
We're still operating outside, and I also was able to get a grant, so we brought like almost a shield, so that when we deal with clients and we're dealing with clients' choice and we're very close with them, we actually have a nice screen that we kind of do like a divider, almost like a partition, like a
mm.
cubicle, and it's
Oh,
worked out
okay.
well. And then
Yeah.
that way we limit a lot of the face-to-face contact. We still have it, but it's not that exposure.
Right, right.
Wow. Wow.
So for those of you who don't know, as we were saying, Alice runs the food pantry that runs out of St. Peter's every Saturday morning. So I'd love to. I actually volunteered there eons ago before the pandemic. So it was a long, long time ago. So I have a tiny taste of what happens every Saturday morning. But I would love for you to just talk to the community about that ministry and how it's been, because I know obviously in the pandemic, it's been a very challenging time for so many people. And that food pantry has really been a lifeline for a lot of people. And so I'd love for people to hear about what you've been doing and kind of the experience that you've had during the pandemic, sort of seeing what's been happening and how critical that work has been.
I would love to. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to join the both of you this morning. I usually sign on once in a while on a Sunday after service. And I said, this is great to have like a lighter moment. But regarding the food pantry, we actually had like I would say the last 3 years have been very challenging, only because we had to go through so many periods of transition because we do deal with a lot of federal, local, and state entities and agencies. So we have all these regulations, and it's a great thing because I'm familiar with all of them. But what's happened is we've had shortages, of course, with the political cutbacks with SNAP. So we stay very connected within the city, and they've been very supportive, and even the federal government as far as supporting us with food credits. And of course, when the pandemic struck, that was another challenge for us, because at that point it was a matter of safety. And I told even the volunteers, I said, one thing about me, I'm all about business, but the other thing too, as far as serving the community, is safety for you and for myself. So we had to really kind of shift gears very quickly. So that's how we ended up. First of all, it was so funny because the January of 2020 at the university, one of the audits that I do every year is the Confucius Institute. So I deal with a lot of foreign entities for the university for our international scholars. And what was happening is there were a lot of people that were traveling internationally, and when they came back to campus, everyone had on masks. So people were like, do people know something we don't know? And I'm like, hey, I don't know, but anyway, long story short, shortly after the pandemic broke out, I had asked some of my colleagues, I said, what is one of the safest things, and what do you know about this? Because there was so many unknowns at the time.
Sure.
And at one time, a lot of the pantries had started closing in the soup kitchens. So there was one time where one of the professors actually said that, I'm not sure either. We're all kind of learning as we go about this thing. So at that point, that's when they said that it was probably better. They weren't sure if it was airborne, but it was safer to operate outside. And that's the only thing we knew. We didn't know about the mask and the whole bit. So that's when we tried to figure out how to transition outside very rapidly. So it worked. I mean, it was really through the grace of God. There were a couple of grants that were out there for pantries and soup kitchens that were still open. And we were still getting that flow because at that point, people were getting laid off. You had a lot of the emergency service workers, the essential workers that needed food. So we really, it was incredible because it was like, I call it like the Bermuda Triangle. It was like everything was happening all at once. We had to figure out how to operate safely outside. Then we had to figure out with this big influx of people. So what happened is, we were fortunate enough because I try to keep my ear to the ground with a lot of the federal and the agencies and the other local agencies to figure out what's going on for funding. So there was this grant opportunity for $15,000. So anyway, as soon as I found out about it, we applied for it, we got it.
Wow.
And at that point, I thought about what one of the professors had said about operating outside. So then I think I had shared with Christine and Brenna, I said, you know what we should probably do then? I'm going to buy tents. So at that point, this was back in February, March or so, I started sending requests for proposals for companies for industrial strength tents, because I know when I spoke to some of my other pantry colleagues, they said they brought some of these, like the backyard version. And they said that it didn't really work out because when the weather got bad, the things were folding in the rain and blowing. So at that point, then I did those requests for proposals. We had some great companies that were really good grade tents. So we brought 2 tents, and I told Christine and Brenna that we could also, of course, we are St. Peter's. So when they have church events also, when there are church events, when we have church events, you can also use them. So that's when we thought about the tents, but that worked out kind of nicely in the April to the May and June of 2020. But then I always try to forecast ahead. And it worked out kind of nice because what happened, the volunteers, they would bring their little box, and they do dance on Saturday, by the way, too, I want you to know. So we have one of our resident dancers, and we choose a decade. So yesterday was the 70s. So they were giving out the food. So it became kind of a nice moment where the clients were even enjoying it, like with the tent and then the music and the food. It was almost like more of a festive environment. So it took a little stress away from the moment, which was nice.
Yeah.
So we got the tents, and then I always tease them. I said, look, I'm a baby boomer, so I'm always trying to think ahead here, right? And then plus I told them, you get a little older, you worry about it getting cold. So then I started thinking before the fall came, I said, you know what, if we stay outside, which I want to, unless, we can't really go back inside and operate safely. And especially in that basement, because Martha would tell you, that's where we first met. You see how tight that quarters?
Yeah, absolutely.
So then I said, no, we got to do something about this. So then I said, all right, guys, this is the deal. And the volunteers, one thing about them, they like hanging out. Even like last week for Mother's Day weekend, they all met in the city. So I said, what is this? I got a party group. Anyway, I told them, I said, you guys, I said, we can't congregate like a flock of bees. And I said, I'm glad we like each other, but it becomes like human nature where people want to congregate. Even with the clients, they'll come in and they'll want to talk. And a lot of them we know on a first name basis. So long story short, we did that thinking ahead and, the strategic planning. And then the next step was we brought outdoor heaters. So we have, I think, 3 or 4 outdoor heaters now. So we were able to transition everything outside. And then through discussions with Episcopal Charities, we always had 2 different models of distributing food. Is what we call grab and go. So a grab and go is when you give the client a bag that's already pre-packed.
Right.
So that's been our common model. But with the pandemic, we stressed it even more so because what was happening is the clients and the volunteers both, because I'm looking at safety from both perspectives, because we have that face-to-face contact and it's like, oh, I don't want this. I want Cheerios. I don't want cornflakes. I want macaroni and cheese. I don't want mashed potatoes. So then I try to figure out, so how could I do this in a humane way? So then I told Episcopal Charities, and we became their role model actually for this. I said, we're going to do a hybrid model. So what we did is one of our volunteers, her name is Rebecca. So I told her, I said, in order to make this thing fun, we set up a separate little table. And don't forget, we have the 2 tents now too. So we have a separate table on Saturday for Rebecca's Corner. And in Rebecca's Corner, we usually have 2 or 3 volunteers that come. And we set up those partitions I just mentioned to you. Yesterday was the first time we used them. And we allow clients to not only have their 2 pre-packed grab and go bags, but when they go to Rebecca's Corner on the other side, they're able to choose exactly what they want. So that works out very well. And the partition was also necessary because what happened is, and I told the volunteers, they said, oh, Alice, I felt so bad. And I said, after doing this for a number of years, I know. I said, sometimes, unfortunately, if something is free and if you don't control it, you will have like that pandemonium. Because people, when we had 1 week where people had donated toilet paper, and it was like pandemonium.
Yeah.
People, and what we ended up doing, because each of the packs of toilet paper had 12 in it. So what we did, I said, to make it fair, to make sure we have enough when the lines continue. Then we separated them and we gave out 2 in each shopping bag. So when they got the grab and go, they got the 2 rolls of toilet paper, and then they got the additional items as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so we've had to adjust quite a bit. And one thing that I'm noticing too, and I'm going to put it in my report this week to the city, is that when the money came out for COVID relief, what we noticed was happening is the numbers were dropping. Because the volunteers yesterday, we went through, I think, 3 or 4 sheets, and each sheet has usually about 25 clients on it. And we noticed at that point that was it. And normally on a Saturday, we go easily up to 150 people. And near Thanksgiving, it was up to 200 almost.
Wow.
So, we noticed the changing trends. So that's what I contributed to now, that people have the COVID money, so then it's like, we may not necessarily need you now. But I told one of the volunteers yesterday, I said, don't worry. I says, they were like, where's everybody? I says, you'll see that sometimes you'll have patterns that happen. So like I said, we're still rapidly changing. We're still rapidly evolving. We've been very fortunate too. We do have quite a few of the parishioners from St. Peter's that have been joining us, faithfully. And the other thing that I will mention to you that we did a Mother's Day weekend, I didn't work the whole weekend, but I did have to work Saturday. And what Saturday, the goal Saturday was to do was to finalize the template for the volunteer portal. So through a partnership with Episcopal Charities, we now have a volunteer portal, because that also controls how many people come. And I get more advance notice, because we had that before the pandemic, but it was through the Food Bank for New York City, and they had taken that site down. So now we have a portal. So I gave Brenna, lovely Brenna, who's been my really, Brenna is more than, I call her my little daughter, but Brenna, I gave her the link for that. So she's gonna have it posted if it's not already done on the webpage. for the parish, and also and some of the bulletins. That way it's easy. It'll just take you directly into the portal.
Yeah.
And what we decided to do, and one thing too that I really want to tell you that we should all be very proud of. St. Peter's has an outstanding reputation for volunteer retention.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's a good thing. They teased me at Episcopal Charity. They asked me, "What are you doing?" I said, "It's called Motown." You know, what do you want from me?
Well, Alice, what I wanted to say was what I remembered from when I was able to volunteer, that, even in the midst of all of this change and this chaos that you've been managing, like the one thing that I was really struck by was that the volunteers that were there, at least, really seemed to be people who were consistently there. They all knew each other. They had really friendly relationships. But not only that, like as they were handing the food out, they knew the people that were coming.
Oh,
So
yes.
it was a very relationship-based thing, and I was really kind of impressed by that. And I think that that's what makes a huge difference, right? When you come to a food pantry or something like that, that it feels like a community is just sort of gathering together to bolster each other, and not like a handout or things like that. People know your name, and
oh no, they know our names. And sometimes I told them it's not a good thing, because it's like, where is she? you know, and then it was so funny. One Saturday it was pouring down rain, so we did work under the tent, but you still are in and out. So I had one of the volunteers laughing, and I'm so thankful. I had on a jacket that day that I was able to take it off, and it was so wet I had to end up taking it and put it in the dryer in the kitchen. But when we were walking up the street, because we all try to walk together, or wherever they're going to go hang out on a Saturday. And it was so funny. We saw one of our clients, and the man was like, "Where y'all going?" And I was like, "I beg your pardon. When did we get married? When did I have to give account to you?" But we all, we have developed that relationship. We've had some that we know, their children and their story. We've had some sad cases too, where we'll miss some of the people coming, and then we'll ask, other people that are usually with them. They'll say, so and so passed away. So there is a connection. And I know every time we've had a site inspection, they said that they were so happy to see the connection. And the good thing is that I think, like one of the volunteers said, yes, that we like each other. Like last week for Mother's Day, they sent me a Mother's Day card. I mean, it was when they had made a video and they all put them on there. I said, why can't I use you guys at tax time? That's next week. Help me.
It's a lot of dependence.
Yes.
So in the chat, there is a link included for the volunteer portal. So for anyone who's interested, there's a link there. Alice, if people wanted to contribute or support the food pantry, which I think is like one of the prides of St. Peter's community, is the food pantry. If someone wanted to contribute or support in another way, how could they do so?
Well, right now, to be honest with you, and I shared this with Christine and Brenna this week, food-wise, we're fine. As a matter of fact, what's going to happen, we're almost at the end of our fiscal year for the agencies. The fiscal year ends June 30th. And because for fiscal year ending 21, I applied for so many grants. We were awarded so many grants. We still have another $10,000 that we have to spend down by June 15th to close out the fiscal year. So I would have to say two things. One is, of course, monetary donations are always appreciated because they would help with some of the non-food items. And then I would say anytime, after the fiscal year, once we do the spend down, then, I would have a better gauge, because I know what happens then is from September until December, we run into the holiday season. I call it the George Bailey syndrome. So what happens is, everybody at Christmas time, they want to do good and feel good. So then that's when we have a lot of our corporate food drives. So right now, I'd have to say until the end of the fiscal year, food-wise, we're fine. And that is a blessing. Like I told one of the volunteers yesterday, she says, we have a lot of milk. And I said, well, this is a good thing to have, because certain things as far as inventory, with our wish list, which I do publish every holiday season, and I'll be happy to share that with you. The wish list consists of things that sometimes are rare and the food bank forgetting. Sometimes I'll go log onto inventory and they'll be depleted. So those are usually the milk, the cereal and the protein items.
Yeah.
The other thing too, besides taking care of the human members of the family, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I got a phone call from our agency rep, and she said, would you be willing to talk to a representative from Purina Dog Chow and something called Blue? I didn't know at the time what Blue was, but I understand that Blue is the elite version of dog food.
It is
So
fancy dog food.
Yes, the fancy dog's food.
I see.
Yes. So anyway, that's where they get the spring water next to their bowl. So anyway, next Wednesday we should be getting a delivery of the dog food. We only ordered one pallet because I didn't want to take a chance and have a whole lot of it left as far as inventory. But we're gonna get one pallet, so that should be nice. Because there was a time when Father Winslow was there and they did the blessing of the animals, and I always laugh because I said I get the strangest request sometime on Saturdays. We had a gentleman that came in with his dog and he was upset. He said, I brought Buster to this church last week for the blessing of the animals and he didn't get his biscuit. And what are you going to do to make it right? And I was like, well, I'm so sorry. And Buster's sitting there staring at me. So hopefully maybe Buster and his owner will return next week.
Yeah.
How wonderful that you guys are able to even do that and take care of not only the two-legged family members, but the four-legged.
Absolutely. We call them affectionately the fur babies.
The fur babies.
Yes.
Something we don't think about, but something that's something we don't like instinctually think about, but it's a very important, community to take care of.
Absolutely.
Pets. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Well, it's so fascinating to just hear about all the work that you've been doing. It's so wonderful. We kind of are entering into the last third of our time here. And what we do is we try to ask some questions to learn more about you, Alice, because we've heard a lot about the food pantry and the work that you do there, which is amazing. But we also want to know about you.
Sure.
So we're going to spend this last 10 minutes here asking you some questions. And
rapid fire questions.
They're never rapid though,
They're
so don't feel
rapid
any
fire,
pressure. But Christopher,
I'll do my best.
Okay.
And Jen Lee is saying thank you so much for all of your hard work, and may God continue to bless your leadership and ingenuity, Alice. So
thank you.
Here's my first question for you. What are your hobbies?
My hobbies are, I would say, traveling. And then when I talked to my doctor on Friday, because I had a few medical challenges, I told him, I said, look, I'm not going to be, down on any of this, because I said, you get older, the parts break down a little bit. I said, the main thing is I just need a good tune-up, all right? So the other thing is that he has really encouraged me to do, my other way of relaxing and hobbies now has been walking. I try to make sure I get to the park, every day. Because one thing I realized, and, I didn't even think about this with the transition, I've been working from here at my home office most of the time, and I tried to stay out of campus as much as possible until I have to go back. But I realized that I'm sitting at my desk too much here at home. Yeah. And then I realized that by the end of the day, because sometimes I have 10, 12-hour days here. And then, you get up and all of a sudden, and like my sister and I are, 2 years apart, we laugh about when we got to be past 50. She said, oh, honey, she said, when they say snap, crackle, pop, it has a whole new meaning. You get to our age, because I get up and my hip will be hurting. So I would have to say walking and more traveling, because my son actually just graduated from college.
Congratulations.
And, thank you. From James Madison University. So he graduated in December. They didn't have a ceremony or anything, but I told him in a couple of weeks, in the middle of the week, I'm going to sneak out and come down, because that way I figured the midweek will be better, because there won't be a lot of people on the road.
Yeah. Wow.
That's wonderful. All right. So here's the next question. So Alice, tomorrow you're going to wake up and a miracle has happened. What is that miracle?
Oh, I got a good, easy one for you. Tomorrow I will not have any complaints from the employee hotline, because I get those too. And they've been really hot and heavy lately, and it's been it's been challenging. Some of it's been sad because we've had furlough time, and it's been a really tough time at the university. It's a huge deficit, so people are asking for questions, and one thing about me, my management style has always been one of disclosure and openness. And I think when you don't have that, people start panicking, the rumors start spreading. So the hotline has been real hot. So Monday mornings, and it's sometimes on the weekend because it's up 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that would be my one miracle that I would hope for, that I could just work on the audit work tomorrow. Of course, any client calls, and I had to deal with some of the hotline grievances.
Yeah, that seems like it would be a miracle, but we can hope that for you.
Thank you.
Fingers crossed. Here's a question. One of our favorite topics, Martha and myself.
Food. It's food.
What's a favorite go-to weeknight dinner?
Well, one thing, that was one of the discussions I had on Friday with my doctor for follow-up. I have a problem with gluten intolerance. So when I found out, I really had to get creative. But one of my traditional go-to dinners in the evening that's pretty fast is gluten-free penne with Alfredo sauce. And then I put spinach in it and grilled chicken.
Wow.
That sounds good.
Little creamy with that chicken protein. Amazing.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, here's an insider tip. How do you prepare the chicken? Is it?
Oh, the chicken, just a little bit of olive oil, and then I saute it with very little salt and pepper.
Okay. Thank you.
Nice. Very good.
Now I'm hungry.
So you have to come down to Monmouth Junction. It's so nice here too. I was looking at the deck earlier, and I said maybe today I'll make time to actually sit out there for a little bit.
Yeah, do that.
Yes, definitely. So we're talking about you like to travel and things that you eat. So if you have a bucket list, many of us do. I'm starting to list things on my bucket list. What would be the top 3 things on your bucket list?
Well, one of them would be my son teases me. He said, "Oh, Mom, you talk like an old woman now." And I said, I kind of do fall into that category right now, ARP magazines. But one would be they be in Boston on the 4th of July for the Boston Philharmonic. That's one of them.
Okay.
The other one would be to have a cruise that would, not one of those express ones that I've taken before for the 7 or 10 days, but maybe a 14-day one. I don't think I would want to do one of those world ones or the ones that's, extended, because after a while I'm like, get me off of the ship.
Yeah.
But that's definitely one of the things on the bucket list. And the other one I think is any parent is when you see your children grow up into adulthood, to see them be happy and successful, whatever that means. And I had to learn, and I know I told my son one time that I says, I know I come on you a little tougher, but that's because his dad died 12 years ago. So it's just me and him. Then I always tell him, he said, well, you work a lot. I said, yes, because I've had to. And also that, on the bucket list is that, he and other young men of color are safe. I would definitely have to say that, because that's something is always like, I think as a mom, is always in the back of my heart and in the back of my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Thank
you. That's a big one. Yeah.
Here's one to tap into some of your wisdom. When you have a really hard decision to make, what do you do?
It depends on what it is. And I can relate to this a little bit from my job at the university. I'm in charge of internal audit and compliance. There's situations where, like, when we have board meetings, especially when I see that things are a little dire, maybe that's the word for it. And I have to be careful too, as an auditor, we kind of do see things mostly like, the sky is falling, but with certain things, you want to sound the alarm so it doesn't get any worse, but then I have to be careful also with the politics of it. And I've worked at universities before. There was one in particular that I worked at, and I was there for 14 years. And there was something that happened with, it was really a lot of underhanded dealing. And my boss came into my office one afternoon and closed my door. And I said, okay, whenever they do that, I'm in trouble. But anyway, he told me, because I had to testify in front of the state ethics commission. He said, don't forget that I sign your paycheck.
Oh.
So, when I have those situations, it's very uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. That doesn't sound very fun.
No. But I've learned now because I do, I have somewhat of a legal background, and I do report, on a dotted line to an attorney. Um, I don't, I won't not tell the truth, because I've had situations where I've been subpoenaed and had to give a deposition, and I've had the hearing officer ask me, did you know about this? And of course, then they usually take my hard drive anyway, so you would know about it. But I don't mix the truth, because I know, like I told one of my colleagues, I says, I'm not very wealthy, so I don't have tons of money to help me get out of legal entanglements. So I do tell the truth, and I'm very careful with language, especially putting things in writing.
Oh yeah, a good CYA is like something you definitely learn. It sounds like in a role like yours. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We have a joke on the campus. I told them, like, that song with the little kids at preschoolers about the wheels on the bus. That's funny. And with some of the things I've seen, people have been beyond the wheels on the bus. They'll roll you over and back and put it in reverse and go back.
I shouldn't laugh, but it is sadly true. So.
Yeah. I wish sometimes that I could teach young people, that once they get out of school, that sometimes, those things you have to avoid, because they don't teach you that in college.
No.
They don't teach you survival skills like that. And also, too, that you're not going to always be treated fairly.
Right.
So I think that's why a lot of young people, when they first get out of college, their transition is very challenging, because you don't have that.
No, those are the life lessons you sometimes have to learn along the way. So, yeah.
And I think in one of our book club meetings, they said also, being a Christian, that sometimes you're a bit conflicted with some of these things.
Yeah. Life is a lot more complicated than I think we give it credit for. So, yeah. Well, I've only asked this question one other time, and I like it because it's such a random curveball, and it's just a very light question. So, if you could be any ice cream topping, what would it be?
Any ice cream topping?
Yes.
I would just say anything that goes good with butter pecan. So it could be anything. It could be the fudge, and I think I have some down in the freezer. I may have to get some out later.
That sounds like a good thing to eat on your deck as you're enjoying the weather.
Oh,
yes,
that's a
but I love ice cream. Yesterday was funny. When I drove home yesterday, I had to take a little break because my commute is long. So I usually leave the car at Metro Park, and I still have a 45-minute drive. So when I got near the house yesterday, I stopped off at Reader's, and I actually had a nice vanilla custard. It was really delicious. And I did really good. I told my doctor, I says, you know what, you've become my Jiminy Cricket, your consciousness is always behind there. So I did really good. I got a little cup of the vanilla custard shake, and what I did is I sipped a little bit in the car. And when I got home, I put it in the refrigerator, and I just said, nope. I said, I will not drink this whole thing tonight. So it's still more than half in the refrigerator.
Wow, that is self-control that I do not have.
Restraint.
Yes. Well, what I realized too is that, and this was something I learned last week, and I usually do a lot of my research about medical things, and especially, as I've gotten older, is that I didn't realize that when you have too much sugar, it affects your joints.
Oh, really?
Oh,
yeah. So I told my doctor, I said, no wonder I felt like I was hopping like a rabbit last week. So he told me, he says, limit it. And I noticed that, I feel so much better.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Oh,
all
gosh,
the things we learn too late in life. I think we learn those things too late. Like when we're young, we should be setting a good foundation, but when we're young, we don't feel it. So it's like,
no, you don't. No. But like I said, where I'm at now, I told my doctor, I said, look, I know what phase I'm at now, and I know things have changed a bit.
Wow.
And I'm not complaining, I said, I'm glad to still be around, still being active. And I said, I never wanted to be one of those old people that are always just complaining.
Something to strive for. Yes. Hey, you're living that, I think. And well, here's a question for you. What kinds of things make you laugh out loud?
Oh, lately, at the university, it's been, I think we have a lot of professors. It's not that we're laughing at their interpretation, but one in particular, because she calls me almost every other day for advice on handling some things, because she has, some financial issues and how to manage things. But one day she was trying to explain to me about with the American sayings. She said something about, I think she was trying to say to play devil's advocate. And I shared this with Brenda. I said, yeah, but that afternoon she was telling me, she said, Alice, I think I am an advocate for the devil. So I said, you are. And I couldn't stop laughing.
That's definitely not the side you want to be on.
No. So I thought that was a good one. And then the other one that I didn't mean to laugh like this, but with the hotline I mentioned to you. So people are starting to come back on campus. So anyway, a couple of weeks ago, one of the employees actually had started bringing her dog to work. So people were complaining, like, this is not fair. So then, then I got a few complaints in about, when is this going to end? Should I bring my cat and all this? So one afternoon, then this woman leaves a voicemail message, in the office, and she's like screaming. She says, I'm not even going to the hotline. She said, the dog is here now. He just marked the spot. So I called my boss and I said, Andy, I said, did you know, in addition to being in charge of internal audit and compliance and the hotline, I am also the dog whisperer now. I got to figure out how to go clean the spot up. I think that in some days it's just, and some things are just, I don't know, some things they could kind of resolve, I think, on their own, and they make it worse than it is.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. And then for you, sometimes you just have to be able to laugh at it, or else it's just like, what else could you do?
I told one of the board members that one day. He said, how are you keeping your sanity? So I told him, I says, I think I have enough, sir, to be honest with you, for a reality show.
I'm sure.
Well, like one man told me, he said, when is my audit going to end? And I said, well, listen, I said, that depends entirely on you. I says, if you want me to stay hanging around, and I said, we could have, as they say, you could have a marriage made in heaven, or you could have one made at the other place.
Oh.
So that is up to you. I will stay here as long as you want me here. He was like, no.
Well, it's we've gone a little bit over our times. It's been so lovely to chat with you, Alice. So I think and Christopher, since this is our last view for a little bit here, as we're about to go on hiatus, I just want to tell you that I love you, and I
love you. You are my sister friend.
Yes, forever. Forever.
My Martha partner. I love you.
Yes,
and we could not have had like a more wonderful final guest here with Alice. Just to say, Alicia has said happy belated Mother's Day to you.
Oh, tell Alicia I say hello to, and I miss her. I always loved talking to her about her dad, and I want to have one afternoon where we could just talk about her dad and my grandfather.
Oh, well, she says, thank you so much for all you do. And Catherine Kramer, I think, sums it up best. We have so much to learn from Alice. So
thank you. It's an ongoing process, and that's the other key.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for joining us.
Yes.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
And have a great time. When do you return?
Yeah. Well, we don't know. We're kind of trying to, everything is so much in flux with what service is going to look like in the fall and all of the guidelines and things like that. So I think we're a little bit open to figuring out what the St. Peter's view will be in the future, what the next kind of 2.0 iteration is, but we don't have those answers yet. So stay tuned. We'll see.
Okay. I will. Everyone be safe. And have a great rest of your day. And thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye all.